Hello, welcome to the Jake Show. That's the name now. This is the Jake Show. Just kidding, no, I'm actually talking about Tomb of Annihilation today. This is actually a D&D show, who would have guessed it? It's not like we've been doing this for a year plus. Today I am here to come and spread the word about the fact that even though Tomb of Annihilation is the perfect module, it isn't the perfect module. I know, right? It does have its flaws, and I'm here to help you with some of them, I think, and kind of talk about what flaws there are and perhaps some simple solutions on how to fix them so that you can come up with more complex ways to do that yourself as you go along in ye olde 2017 or something written adventure, where a lot of the earlier ones leave a lot of blanks, except Curse of Strahd. The rest of them are sort of, here's the story, or here's no story. And there's nothing in between. And Tomb of Annihilation doesn't give you too much story in terms of a main plot line, except for a main goal. And therefore, the method that it has for creating more compelling storytelling is having shorter, more localized tales contained within locations. The Trial of Aralunga, the ruins of Nangalore and stuff like that are all just oozing with lore. And I really like that. However, there are some locations that are quite the opposite. There are a few places in the book that don't have a map. That's fine. Not everything needs a map. And don't have anything for the party to do there, even though it's a location marked on the map. I don't really like that, but I think that it's cool if you're a DM that kind of has the time to work on adding extra stuff. Tomb of Annihilation is one of those modules where you might have to do a little bit of your own prep work. Not only reading ahead because you don't know where the players are going to try and go next, but also the fact that there are some locations that really don't give you much to work with. The two main ones that come to my mind are like two of the largest places, ironically, and that's Mesro and Hisari. Both of them are a couple paragraph things that don't pertain as much to the largest story. There are mild references here and there in Mesro, but that's about it. And basically, your savior in this regard is a couple of things. One, it could be the DM's Guild. DM's Guild is a great website that you can use to purchase some pretty legit written expansions on existing modules, PDFs of old modules that you perhaps want to read through to get some inspiration, or other homebrew that people have created that they've put on the platform. And it's, in comparison to the absolute lotto draw of most other stuff online, extremely reliable in terms of its quality. And there's plenty of expansions on Tomb of Annihilation right there, and it even recommends like in the book or something. I remember reading somewhere around the Tomb of Annihilation space where the people who wrote the book specifically were like, hey, DM's Guild has some extra stuff that you might want to check out, which I think is kind of cool, but at the same time it's like DLC adventure modules, which is, it's kind of like, if you want Mesro to be expanded, here, buy our DLC. I think that personally the better solution is to simply do it yourself. Now, if you don't have the time, then DM's Guild resources might be more for you, but if you feel as though you have the time to invest and you less picked a module because you don't need to prep as much, and more picked it because you like the theme and the fact that everything's already there for you, then I think there's no harm in going crazy and making it your own. I'll give you some examples of what the DM's Guild resource on Mesro that I had not bought, but had used, because for a period of time during quarantine, they'd made a few DM's Guild resources free, and a Mesro expansion was one of them, along with an expansion of a few other locations and the addition of other places in Tomb of Annihilation, which we'll also talk about at some point in the future. But I think that for now, if you don't want to add anything else, that's fine. But Tomb of Annihilation is an adventure that can really scale to 20 if you really wanted it to. For my party, it scaled to 12. So yeah, it can really be different for everyone. But in terms of expanding those dots on the map that really don't have much about them, like, come on, Mesro is an entire city that was destroyed by the spell plague, but the real city was in fact not destroyed and was sent to another plane to avoid the chaos of the spell plague. How cool is that? and it's really not expanded on. And granted, even in the resources that I used, it still wasn't properly expanded on, but I believe there's so much to do with that. And spoilers for my current Tomb of Annihilation game, if you want to click off that. But continuing on from that, I do have ideas. I know where Mesro is, and they are likely to encounter it as they go along. I decided that of all the places to go, they likely went to the Feywild, because it's like ethereal and astral plane. Astral plane is too chaotic to properly put yourself in. Ethereal plane is easy to find. So I figured probably Feywild or Shadowfell, and Feywild is likely the better of the two if you know what you're doing. So that's kind of what I had thought of. And that city's in the Feywild, and all of the people from the old Mesro were there, and like trying to survive in the chaotic Feywild, where things are trying to trick them into, like, I don't know, giving up their kidneys or whatever. But in terms of what the players can actually go through, I'll give you some examples of what sort of things that the expansion talks about, and things in terms of what you could add to Mesro. There were a few interesting angles. So there were a couple of animal cults. So there was a cult of a crocodile, which had just this massive, swollen, screwed up crocodile that they were kind of worshipping and feeding, if you will, that my party had actually ended up fighting and killing. There was a huge flaming fist presence to the north that was trying to conquer Mesro, and somewhat succeeding in some aspects, sometimes failing in others. And there were other cult presences that were much more prevalent and strong. There were also other remnants of, like, histories. There was a statue that could give you visions, and there's a large central, like, tower in the middle that I had used to kind of let my players each partake in their own personal trial, if you will, that basically involved them doing like a check depending on how they handled said trial, and some failed, some succeeded. And it's retakeable. And the thing that it did was cool, because it was kind of like, you go to a floor, there's a dark archway at the end, and then you go through the dark archway and you're on another floor, and there are 10 floors, and which one you went to was entirely random. My party lucked out and got to the top in like 3. Which is where you're supposed to get to, which is where the trials are. But they're just a few things to spark your imagination. You can go wild from that. You can think of all sorts of different things. Something that I liked about it as well is that it used the typical random encounter thing that if you're running Tomb of Annihilation, you're likely used to by now, except it's more level scaled and gives you examples for all 4 main tiers of play as advertised in ye olde DMG or PHB or whatever it's in. But yeah, there's a few unique ideas. Mesro became quite a important place for the party due to the trials that they'd undertaken and how it impacted them, due to all sorts of different factors, like it's Artus Simba's home is there, and he was in Mesro when he'd actually joined them and then decided to go to his home for a bit and give up adventuring for a little bit so he could relax, because the Frost Giants weren't after him or whatever. And basically it was like it was 2, 3, 4 sessions or something worth of just grinding through both story and huge encounters with cults and stuff like that, and all sorts. And it was fun as hell. And they're actually going back there now. The start of my second adventure with the same group is going to start with them arriving in Mesro. And one of the party members are going to be retaking the trial, and there's also 2 new party members that may be taking it for the first time, because Tomb of Annihilation is a player killer / petrifier in my case. In terms of Hisari, which is another place that I mentioned, it's like an old Yuan-Ti city, I believe, that has also got a spell placed on it that just restricts any Yuan-Ti from going in, which I changed a little bit because I thought if there's an old Yuan-Ti city there, I wanted remnants of the Yuan-Ti people to be there. And I also decided it would be like the place of revival for Ras Nasi, you know what I mean? Because once they'd stopped the death curse or something, I figured that Ras Nasi would maybe return with some semblance of his power or whatever. Just because it's cool or whatever. And I changed up some of the lore about him as well, but that's something for another time. If you want to hear me talk about Ras Nasi for a bit, then go check out a video that maybe be up by now, but if you want to see that, comment or something, or tell me in the Discord, oi Jake, talk about Big Snake Man. Hisari, what I did with it is I basically used Hisari as a treasure hunt one-shot. We were going to start a session 0 of a new campaign, but unfortunately people were absent, so we decided let's run a mini thing with like a smaller party. And it was basically a hunt for a previous party member that had kind of slighted them and took all their stuff, so they were like, yeah, we're going after him. And the session was in essence exploring a few key locations in Hisari before finally making their way there. I had a few places planned. There was like a large torture chamber, there was a mostly destroyed palace, and there was like a really trapped shrine and stuff that could have been used to kind of fight in the perspective of the betraying party member or something that I actually played. It was weird to like properly play a previous player character while their player was just stood there right there. But yeah, that was kind of what I used that for, and each of these places has unique potential that you could use. Ignore what I just said. What does that even mean? Each place is cool, right? And I think if you want to expand on them, go ahead. And if you want to kind of like talk over some potential things that you want to do with it, definitely join the Discord. I'm pretty active in there, so if you have any sort of ideas or you want to get some brain fuel or something, you could definitely ask the community or whatever. I think that they'd help, including me as well. And yeah, you could also comment and swap ideas there, but if you found this at all helpful, you can like and subscribe if you want. That would be awesome. We're doing this series continually until I get bored of it, which is very unlikely because Tomb of Annihilation has got a lot going on and a lot I can talk about. But yeah, thanks for watching. See ya. Sorry, Laura was just committing murder, guys.
Spider obliterated.
Achievement unlocked. Spider killer.